Welcome to Let's Talk About It. A podcast gives a platform for real talk, real people, real topics, real conversations. Please subscribe, like, comment, enjoy this journey, and enjoy this ride. Welcome to this week's episode. Welcome, everybody, to Let's Talk About It, a podcast that gives a platform for real talk, real people, real topics, real conversations. First and foremost, right before I introduce my guests, I would like to thank my brand new subscribers, over 7,500 subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing to this podcast. Please like, comment, and share. Please comment and share on this great podcast today, because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to give you your first lifetime story here. you know, um, I reached Caroline here reached out to me right when I posted a post on TikTok saying I want to hear about life after divorce. So she came on. We talked about it. She gave me little samples of it. Wait till you hear about this. This is going to be a good journey, a good story for her. I'd like to introduce Caroline. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now, first and foremost, you and I have had a little back and forth trying to get on this app thing here. So,
Yes, we
so
have.
it's been amazing. First and foremost, let me ask you something. How was your Saturday so far?
So far, so good. Been school clothes shopping with my granddaughter. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
How much money you spent so far? You spent a
I
lot.
I cannot even tell you. I'm embarrassed.
All right, I don't want to keep you on too long, but let's start with this, right? You told me you've been married twice.
Yes.
All right, so let's go by marriage, and let's describe about how well you got married, how what the outcome is, and after each marriage. Because I'm waiting for the marriage, the one you told me about. But let's go with the first one first.
Okay. My first marriage, I got married when I was still a junior in high school. Um,
Okay.
1985. I was 17 years old. He was 21. Um, he would go to jail now for that. But anyway, so we got married. We had two babies. My two daughters, they are now 36 and 38. My granddaughter that's in the car with me is my oldest daughter's 13-year-old. So I'm 56 and I have a 13-year-old granddaughter. But we got married. We're married for 20 years, had a great marriage, never argued, never fought. We just started going our separate ways. I had to wait a little while to finish my college degree because I had babies. And by the time I was able to get into college and get my degree and start a good career, he had 20 years with his job and was retiring for the first time. So we were moving
Okay.
in completely opposite directions. Um, Ultimately, we just grew apart and decided that the best thing was to go our separate ways. So after 20 years, we went our separate ways. Um, and I was 37 years old and did not know anything but him. We'd been together since I was 15 and
Wow.
struggled for a long time. And while I was struggling emotionally, spiritually, I had some issues at church, and but I was also struggling financially, and I got a speeding ticket, and I went to court for this speeding ticket, and I saw a young lady there interpreting, making a lot of money, like $100 each time she interpreted for someone, and I'm like, that's something I can do. So
Mm,
I started taking up Spanish. I immersed myself into it. I watched television in Spanish. I read books. I carried a dictionary everywhere I went. I started volunteering for an organization called CASA and ultimately met and married a man from Mexico.
now I'm gonna
The
stop you right there. Hold on, Carol. I'm gonna stop you right there because I want to save that part. When you got married the first time, right? You was what, 17, right?
17.
Okay. Why do you think you got married that early age?
I got married at that early age because we'd been together for about 3 years, and I just felt like I knew what I wanted out of life. I wanted to be married and have babies, and at that point in my time, that's what I wanted. And I was very much in love with him. He will always be the love of my life, always. And he
Mhm.
gave me two beautiful children, and he gave me 20 years. I'm not going to say we didn't struggle. We did struggle. But
Mhm.
ultimately, at the end of our marriage, we just weren't compatible anymore, to be honest with you. We were on completely opposite sides of the spectrum. Even today, we are just we don't even speak anymore. Um,
Mhm.
we it's we've been divorced as long as we were married, though, to be honest.
Yeah.
And but after we got married, I didn't know who I was. I was his wife.
Really?
No, I didn't know who I was. I think I was learning who I was during our marriage, is why we started to grow apart so much, because I learned that there were things that I wanted just for myself, and a career was something that I wanted after my kids were older and everything. I always worked. I mean, I had to work, but it wasn't a career. And
Yeah.
once I got into my career field, I just wanted to grow and blossom, and that is what I've done. And it's very fulfilling, which my marriage was as well. But like I said, he I'm not a couch potato, and he's very much a couch potato. And so
Yeah.
but as far as struggle, I struggled after our divorce tremendously. I didn't,
All right.
it took me about 2.5, 3 years to really figure out who I was, because
Mhm.
I'd always been just a wife and mom.
Now, after 20 years of marriage, up and down, right? What was that moment where you said, okay, like you talked to yourself, you probably said, Caroline, I'm done. What was that moment when you said you had to go?
Um, it was our anniversary, and I had gotten a really good job. I live in Arkansas. We had a brand new Embassy Suites that had just opened in Little Rock, which we lived 30 minutes away from Little Rock. I bought us tickets to go to a dinner theater and to spend the night at Embassy Suites for our anniversary, and he wouldn't go with me. He
Uh,
said that there was no need in spending that kind of money, and he wouldn't go. And that's like, well, I'm trying to revive our marriage and save our marriage, and he just wants to sit on the couch.
all right. So let me ask you this, right? I'm gonna ask you two more questions about your first marriage. You know when they say, right, when you take your vows and all this shit for better, for worse, and stuff like that, like, what do you think, in your opinion? Do you think that it was more bad, it was more worse than better, or vice versa?
I think that no, in the beginning it was because I was so in love with him, and I just wanted to be his wife. And it was a huge struggle because I was still in high school. I was just a junior in high school. I remember when I turned 20, he was the happiest man on earth, because I'm not married to a teenager anymore. I've been married for 3 years, and I'm not married to a teenager anymore. He would take me to softball practice just like a parent. He would take me to
Wow.
softball practice. He would take me to basketball practice. I was an athlete, and he took me everywhere. And I remember we got married in 1985. I graduated in 1986. And I remember we had open campus, but you had to have a letter signed from a parent saying that you could go off campus for lunch. Well, I was a
Yeah.
senior, And I had to have a signed letter from my husband saying I could leave campus for lunch.
Wow. Now
Hmm.
I gotta ask you this question here. When you got married at 17, what did your parents say?
My dad was against it, but my mom was adamantly for it. She was the one that signed. You had to sign. She had to sign for us. And she was so afraid that I was going to get pregnant and embarrass the family that she was pushing hard for me to get married.
Why would she feel that way?
And that's just the way they felt back then.
This is like the old school, the old
Mhm.
days, the old school ways. Got you,
Yeah.
got you. So out of everything, right, you learned the ups and downs in 20 years. Like, did you take? I mean, what was that like after you got divorced? How was that first, let's say, 30 days?
The first 30 days were, I can remember calling his secretary at work. You didn't have cell phones back then. If you did, I mean, they
Yeah.
were very expensive. And I can remember calling his secretary at work. He is the maintenance manager for a school district. And I remember calling his secretary, literally sobbing, begging him to come home. I called her. I said, please have him call me. I've got to talk to him. He called me and I begged him to come home. Begged him.
Really?
Hmm. I did.
Right? So now, right, looking back now, why do you think you begged him to come home the first month?
Because I didn't know what to do. I didn't
Mhm.
know where to go. I didn't know how to do anything alone. I didn't know what to do with my kids. I didn't know. I knew nothing. I didn't know how to pay bills. I didn't know. I knew nothing.
So you put everything. So basically, he did everything.
He did
He did all
everything.
that. He was just the wife and stuff like that. So you said right, you got a degree, right? What
Mhm.
was your degree in?
It's business administration with an emphasis on human resources.
Oh, I like that. I like that. So after the month there, right, you was like, okay, I don't know what to do. When did you start hitting your stride? Like, okay, I gotta take care of my kids. I gotta woman up. I gotta get a career. I gotta pay these bills by myself. Walk me through that process.
Okay, I'm gonna be 100% open and transparent. I
Yeah,
was very, very sick, and I'd called him and begged him to come home. And
really.
he had an apartment, and he had not like you said, it had been approximately 30 days, and he um he had not given me a dime of money, and I was struggling tremendously. And I told him, I said, I'm going to have the girls go to my parents. We lived next door to my parents. I said, I'm going to have
Mhm.
I'm going to have the girls go down to my mom and dad's. Will you come home for supper? I'll cook supper. And I had probably 103, 104 degree fever. I had strep throat. I was so very sick, and it was pouring down rain. And he said, I don't really feel like it. Why don't you come to my house, my apartment? So I went to his apartment, and I got there, and he was going to cook for us, and he opened the refrigerator, and the refrigerator was full of steaks and roasts and pork chops. And that's when I opened my eyes, and I said, he has all of this. I told him, I said, you bag up half of it. I'm taking half of it home to your children. I don't need anything from me, but half of that's going home to your kids. And in the mean, and he's like, well, I can't do that. It's not mine. And
Whoa.
yeah, I went to the bathroom, and there were women's robes, cosmetics, clothes, all in the bathroom. And that's when I said, it's time for me to woman up. I can't depend on him anymore. And I walked out the door and
So
went.
this is a month after you got separated, divorced. He had another woman there.
Yes, he told me when I asked him, he said that the food that I told him, he said it wasn't his. He said it's the woman that cooks for me, but all of her things were there. So he was obviously living with her. Yes.
Okay. Wow.
So I
All
warmed
right.
up, I
So,
learned Spanish, and I started interpreting at hospitals, in courts,
okay.
everywhere that
Okay.
I possibly could.
So you're learning Spanish. So now let's get to I guess this is where you get into the beginning of your second marriage.
Mhm.
Now, this is like the lifetime story part.
Mhm.
So break it down to me.
So I lived in Dallas. I had gotten a job when Katrina went through in New Orleans. I went down there to do cleanup work, and I got a
Okay.
job as an HR manager at a dairy. And after Katrina and we got the dairy back going 100%, they gave me a promotion and transferred me to Dallas. And
Okay.
I was in Dallas for a couple of years, and my best friend is Mexican American, and we started going to what they call a baile. It's just a dance. You go and there's live music and you dance. And
Okay.
this handsome Mexican man asked me to dance, and we danced and we exchanged phone numbers. We started dating. He disappointed me a couple times, and I didn't want to see him anymore. And ultimately, we got back together and got married. And the way
That
we
was
got
quick.
married, well, it was over a process of a long time. We actually were living together, and my kids decided they were coming to visit. And I told him, I said, we can't be living together and my kids coming. And he's like, well, let's just get married. So we got married. Well, the weekend my kids were coming. So we got married.
Okay, let me ask you, but hold on, Carol. Let me ask you this. What's the difference when you first met the second husband to the first husband?
The difference is absolutely, completely, and totally different. My first husband, I knew I was in love with him. I looked at him across the street and I said, I'm going to marry that man.
Okay.
And my second husband, I enjoyed spending time with him, but let's be honest, he wasn't marriage material, not for me. But I was lonely, and I just was tired of being by myself, and I didn't want to be embarrassed by my kids coming in and their mom being shacked up with someone, so we just decided to get married.
Wow. What a great episode that we're all watching right now. Please like, subscribe, comment. We'll be right back right after this little commercial message. Right back to this interesting episode. Thank you for watching. Be right back. Okay. All right. Continue on with this story because now it's getting interesting.
So he had 4 children that were in Mexico. He was here on a work visa, but with a work visa, you're only allowed to be here and work. You're not allowed to go back to your country. And the company that had sponsored him had been sponsoring him every year for I think he'd been here for 8 years and hadn't been home. And
Okay.
he had 4 children. And one by one, I started doing green cards for his children. I didn't hire a lawyer or anything, but
Wow.
his mother had 2 of his children, and his ex-wife had 2 of his children. And we were supporting them financially, and 2 sets of kids in 2 different households, and it was just ridiculous.
All
And
right. Now hold on. Stop you right there. Hold on a second. So, why did you start that process of bringing one kid at a time with a green card?
well, I thought if I had the kids under my roof, I could control the spending better. Because the amount of money that they were asking for us, we did not even, I mean, it was so insane the amount of money that they wanted for these kids. One of them was always sick, and one of them needed this, and one of them needed that, and one of them needed another thing. And it was coming from two different locations, and it was just financially straining. And I thought, and he hadn't seen his kid. He had a little girl that he had never even seen. And
Okay.
I thought this is a gift that I can give him. And one by one, I started to work on things. The process, I didn't hire a lawyer because I'm smart enough. I knew I could do it. But it's a very, very expensive, very time consuming process to do a green card, to sponsor a green card. And I started with his oldest daughter, and it took me about 4 years and
Oh,
probably $20,000. I had
how much?
$20,000.
Fuck. Damn.
And because I had to make, this child had never been to school. She didn't have a birth certificate. I couldn't get anybody to even get a birth certificate for me. I went to Mexico and got her birth certificate. I went to Mexico and got her passport. She had to have some kind of schooling before she could even get a passport. I went to Mexico and put her in what they call clases abiertas, which means open school. And
Yeah.
so I had like a tutor come to her until she could take a test saying that she knew enough to be in the 6th grade. The child could not read and write when I met her.
Oh.
And me meeting her father opened a whole new world to that child. She learned to read and write. She's a very intelligent young lady. But as I did the process for her, I was learning everything. So as I did the process for the other three, I did the other three all at the same time. And which we had to do the first daughter, the oldest daughter, the process, she'd never been vaccinated, so she had to go through like several rounds of vaccinations. She had to we had to do a DNA test to prove, even if he was on the birth certificate, immigration still made us do a DNA test. And so I knew the process, so I had everything for the other three, and it took a lot less time. It only took me like 2 years for the other three. So
Okay.
I got the oldest daughter over here, and that day, I'll never forget that day as long as I live. It was one of the most beautiful moments I've ever experienced for him to see her. And but anyway, as time went on and the other three got here, we were still living in Dallas, and I told him when we got married, I said, someday I'm going back to Arkansas. I said, that's where my family is, and I would come back once a month no matter what and see my kids. And I mean, they were grown, but I still
Yeah.
came home once a month and saw my kids. And I and my dad. And my mom started getting very, very ill, and I told him, I said, it's time for me to go home. And he's like, I'm not going. Take the kids and go. And I'm like, I'm going home. If I go, I'm leaving the kids with you. And he's like, okay, I'm going. So we moved to Arkansas, and I told him, Arkansas, living in Dallas as a Hispanic person is a lot easier life than living in Arkansas as a Hispanic person. And I told him he needed a driver's license and he needed a car. And I told him, I said, and at this point, we'd been married for 8 years. And I told him, I said, okay, I'm going to do your green card now. And I started the process. And For immigration to approve a man between 18 and 55 years old for a green card, the only way for a man to get a green card is to be married to a United States citizen. And that's something that everybody needs to know. You have to be a Mexican man between the ages of 18 and 55. The only way. Everybody says they need to get in line. They need to get in line. You can't get in line. There is no line for a green card unless you're married
Wow.
to an American citizen.
Wow.
And people think because you're married to an American citizen, it's an automatic green card. That's absolutely false. I had to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was a hardship on me to be without my husband. I wrote and had 100 pages of documentation. I had his 4 kids, and I had some health issues. Uh-oh, my phone's gonna die.
Uh-oh.
Hold on.
That's all
I
right.
think
There you go. Let me see everything. Let me see it all. I'll
there
edit it out. Don't worry about
Okay, sorry.
it. Go ahead.
But anyway, I had to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that it was a hardship for me to be without my husband. And having his 4 children here, and that would have been a financial burden. And then I had some health issues going on, and that would have been a burden. I proved it. But in the meantime, we didn't know he had to go to Mexico to have his interview, and him being here on a green card on a visa, on a work visa meant once he got over there, he could not come back. So
Really?
yes, it's changed now. They don't have to do that anymore. But back then when I did his, that's the way it was. When he went over there for his interview, until we got the approval that he was able to come back and have his green card, he had to wait for it. And that was a 10-month process before we knew. And I was here supporting and taking care of his 4 kids by myself for 10, let's say by the time we got him here, it was 11 months. And yes. And during that 11 months, I was taking care of his kids. I was taking them to school. I was taking care of my sick mom. I was supporting him financially. And he got married to somebody else while he was there.
Oh shit. Hold on. Hold on now. Hold on. Hold on. So he was away for 11 months. You're taking care of his 4 children that you helped bring over here. Did he say any financial stability or anything?
No, I supported him financially. I mean,
Okay, so wait a minute. So 11 months later, how'd you find out he married somebody else? He's married to you here.
okay, so it took me about a year and a half to figure it out. So when he
Okay,
got here, we all went to go get him at the border. You have to go to the border, and you get sent this packet that cannot be opened. You have to pick up this packet at DHL, which is like UPS over here. You have to go to the
got it.
DHL office and pick up your packet. Your packet cannot be touched in any way, shape, form, or fashion. It has to be opened by immigration at the border. So
Okay,
we're all there, and we can't go in with him, but we can be sitting downstairs waiting for him. And we were
okay,
all just there anxiously waiting for him to all of us cross the border together. And we got there, got his packet, got across the border, and immediately I could tell he was different. And I couldn't figure out. I thought it was just because it had been such a process for all of us. It was we just didn't know what was going to happen, to be honest. We didn't know if he was going to be approved. We didn't know what was going to happen with the kids if he wasn't approved. We didn't know what we were going to do. We had discussed, I was not moving to Mexico, absolutely not moving to Mexico. And we just weren't sure what we were going to do. And I just thought it was a relief is why he was so different.
Yeah.
And, he hadn't been home but approximately 3 months, I would say. And he's like, oh, my mom's got an emergency. I need to go see about my mom. And I'm like, okay. And we got the money together. He'd been working for about the 3 months. I mean, he got a pretty decent job. I gave him the car that I had been driving, and I bought another car so that he would have a car. And
Right.
so he went to Mexico, and he was gone for a month or so. And he was calling the kids, but he wasn't calling me.
Huh.
And I'm like, I called him, and he like got to where he wouldn't answer my calls or anything. Finally, I called his mom, and I told her, I said, I need to talk to Jesus, and I need to talk to him immediately. Well, he finally called me, and I told him, I said, you've got to come home. I said, my mom is very sick, and I need help with your kids. And so he came home, and he was home another 3 months and had to go back. And this happened on the fourth time that he did it. I told him, I said, you need to just pack your stuff and go to Mexico or wherever it is you need to go. But I can't take care of you, me, my mom, and your 4 kids anymore by myself. I cannot do it. And because every time he would go, he would stay for 2 or 3 months, and I would barely hear from him. And the last time he went, his daughter went with them, and she called me and told me we had built a house over there. We had bought things for the kids if they wanted to go over during the summer and stay at the house, they could do that. And we had bought, we'd bought a little car, and motorcycles and things like that. Things over there are a lot different. When you say a motorcycle, it's not,
Yeah.
yeah, it's completely different. It was just a itty bitty thing that would cost a couple $100. But anyway,
Yeah.
we had everything set up for those kids over there so they could go and spend the summers if they wanted to. And she told me that he was married, and she called me as soon as she walked in the house, and she said, he's married. This woman is living in the house, and they took my name off the house and put her name on the house. And so I called him, and I told him, I said, come and get your stuff. The kids had PlayStations, they had televisions, they had clothes, they had furniture. And I told him, I said, come and get the kids' stuff and get it out, take it back to Mexico, whatever you want to do with it. I said, the kids' stuff. I said, their televisions, their PlayStations, their clothes. Leave everything else, because I had bought it all. And
Huh.
I said, leave my car. And when I will be there Friday, I went and stayed with my daughter for a few days. I told him, I said, I'm going to go stay with my daughter for a few days, and I'll be back Friday. And I want my car in the driveway, and I want the kids' stuff packed up and gone. And I drove by Friday, and my car wasn't there, so I'm like, okay, well, they're probably still packing stuff up. And I went Saturday, my car wasn't there, so I drove up in the driveway, and I went in the house, and everything I owned was gone. My
All right.
clothes.
I get it. Let me ask you something here. So after everything's said and done, the first thing I'm gonna ask you is, how'd you feel when you found out that everything that you have done for this man and his kids, he married another woman? How'd you feel at that time?
Um, just like, I don't even know what to do for a man to keep a man. I mean, what can you possibly do to keep a man? If that's not going to keep him, what will? What possibly can I do? And I don't even know. I've not been in a relationship since. It was in 2015 that he left. I've not been in a relationship since. I've been in therapy for years. I don't think I'll ever be able to trust again, I guess you could say. I don't think that I'll ever be able, and I don't know that I was madly in love with him. It was just that was our marriage. We'd been married for years, and I'd done all this, and that we were settled, and this was our life, and I was destroyed. I was even more destroyed because of everything that I had done, and there was zero appreciation for or zero respect. And
Well,
um I think that their culture doesn't allow, I don't know, not I don't even know allow. I think their culture is just so different for a man to they feel like that they need to be taking care of a woman. They feel like, and maybe that's where, because I learned, like I told you with my second husband, I learned I'm going to pull up my bootstraps and I'm going to do what I have to do. And I'm pretty successful now. I have a really good paying job and a beautiful home. And, I go on vacation 3 or 4 times a year. And I'm not
mhm.
lacking for anything but a person in my life, because I don't think.
Well, Caroline, I'm going to interrupt you here. And I'm going to give my 2 cents as a man. It has nothing to do with his culture. You are not the only woman who's been through that. It's been white men, black men, Spanish men, Indian men, just men in general. You are not the only person who has been through that. It has nothing to do with the culture. It's just how way those men are. Now, the only thing I'm gonna ask you is this. The only thing I'm gonna tell you is this. I'm gonna give you my little PSA moment. Whatever man you meet in the future, he did not hurt you before. So please, I know you're going through counseling now, stuff like that, but just remember, the next man or next guy you meet, he never hurt you before.
No, I know.
Now, on that note, when you finally said, I'm done with the second marriage, how was that moment right there? Because you said you told him to come get the kid stuff and this and that. Like, how did it actually come to an end?
When he took everything and I walked in my house and everything was gone, I knew then that I was going to get a divorce. I knew before. I was just hoping that he would say, I'm sorry, let's fix our marriage. All that we've done. Um, but he didn't. He took everything and left and took it to her. And I just I tried falling. I went to Mexico. I tried to get the things that were in my house. I tried to make him sell it and split it with me because I had paid for everything. And he had already taken everything out of my name and put it in her name. It's very easy to do things like that in Mexico. All you have to do is pay for it. And everything that I had worked for all these years to do and take care of and build, um, just was given to her. And I thought, after all these years, he can finally get a good job, because there were times when he would, like, he worked construction, and there would be times that they would run out of work, and there would be times that it was too raining or too hot or too cold. And
Mhm.
I just thought, with this green card, he's going to be able to get a good, stable job and help me with these kids in a better way. And everything, every time he would come here, every time he would come home after he got his green card, he just saved up all his money just to go back. I had bought him.
So, oh, I'm sorry, but I gotta ask this question. Do you think, and only you know this question, well, his answer, everything you did for this man, the money, the time, the green cards. Did you, and this, and you can say yes or no, whatever you say, did you do this because you was lonely and you wanted him to love you?
Of course.
Do you think he loved you at all?
I used to. I used to think that he loved me, but after that, no, I don't.
Because I'll tell you the truth, I'm outside looking in. You got used.
Oh yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
you got used.
Yeah.
So, so that right there saying, so when everything's said and done, everything is over. So, like the first husband, I gave you 30 days. Let's go with the first 90 days after everything was said and done. How was you mentally, spiritually? How was your support system? How was everything 90 days after everything was done with the second one?
With my second one,
Yeah. How was that for you?
um I was used to him being gone a lot. Financially, it was a huge struggle because everything I had was gone. I had to replace even my clothes. The only thing I had was 3 outfits that I'd taken to my daughter's house. So I just started piece by piece replacing everything in my home. Um, I and that's what I did. I just started rebuilding my life one piece at a time, one puzzle piece at a time, and it took me years to do it. I would say a good 5, 6 years to recover.
Well, let me ask you this. Why do you think you want love so bad?
Um, to say that I want love, I don't even know that I do. Um, I think I want a companion. I think that I want that, but it's been so long now. I mean, that was in 20, it was actually 2014 when he left. It took me
Okay.
several years to get divorced, several years because of the financial implications of him being married to someone else. And
Wow. Yeah.
not even that, the legal implications of him being married to someone else because he was putting everything, well, just like my car, he took my car. And at the border, when he took my car, the things that he did to get my car over there caused me some issues. And him changing everything over into her name showed that I had tax bills in Mexico.
That
And
doesn't conflict at all when you're married to American citizen, American to a Mexican citizen. That doesn't conflict.
no, no, here it's not. Here it's a legal marriage is a legal marriage, and here his second marriage was null and void. Now over there, I don't know because when we his dad sold us the piece of land that we built the house on, and his dad, I adored his dad, I loved his dad, and his dad loved me too. And I can remember I went over there to try to settle things financially. I felt like he owed me something.
Yeah.
And when I was working on the green cards for the kids, it was 2010 and it was the census. I was working 40 hours a week, sometimes 45 hours a week, getting a little overtime in as I could. I had my full-time job, and then I got a job as a census supervisor, supervising a crew on the census 40 hours a
Wow.
week to
Jesus.
pay for everything. I was working 85 hours a week to pay for everything.
Oh my God.
And I um I can remember his mom telling me when I went over there, she was like, that woman would come over here and knock on the door. They called him Chewy. That's his nickname to them, and ask for Chewy. And I kept telling her, don't come over here looking for a married man, but she just wouldn't listen to me. So, I mean, the woman knew very well what she was doing. And she knew
Oh
that he
God.
was married to an American citizen and had a green card, and she was going to live very well financially.
All right. Well, Caroline, what we gonna do is we go wind down this conversation. But before we wind it down, how has it been for you since 2015 to 2024?
Um, I I'm like I'm successful. I have a really good job. I have, like I said, I have anything a woman could ask for, but a person in my life. My grandkids have
Mhm.
never known me with anybody. Like I said, my 13-year-old knew my ex-husband. But she doesn't really remember him. Um,
Yeah,
I think she was 3 or 4 when he left.
yeah.
So they don't know me with anybody. They've never known that. I circle my world revolves around them. I do everything for them. Um, I told my daughter last night. My daughter called me last night, and I remember going home last. I might cry. I remember going home last night after work, and I'm like, because I'd been on vacation with my 2 middle grandkids, and we went to Dallas for a 4-day weekend, and we had just so much fun. And I remember coming home from work last night. I worked until 8 o'clock, not before last, and I worked until 6:30. Um, no, I worked until 8 o'clock Wednesday, and I worked till 6:30 Thursday. But I got off on time last night. I remember going home, and my house was dark, and I was thinking, man, I don't even have anybody to talk to on the telephone. And
Ugh.
um, the loneliness gets hard sometimes. But my daughter called me, and I said, God answers prayers in His way, because I was just thinking I don't even have anybody to talk to. And my daughter called me and talked to me for a good 30 minutes or so. So, God has His way of filling my void. And that's how I feel it. I don't know that I think I could love again 100%. I have a
Mhm.
very good heart. That's the kind of I would do the same thing for somebody else if I thought they loved me back, but I don't know that I could trust that somebody loves me when they say they do.
I totally get it. I do. I do. Caroline, I appreciate you so much for telling your story, telling your journey, life during marriage, after marriage, especially two marriages. Oh God, man, I tell you right now, I'm always gonna keep in contact with you. I'm gonna keep an eye on you. Uh, I know a lot of people gonna be affected by this story. But before we end on this one, I'm gonna give you the last say. But every podcast, I like to ask my people 5 questions. It's like a 5 get to know questions. Are you ready to play with me? It's like a little game.
Sure.
Okay. What is a luxury you cannot live without?
Vacation.
Oh, that was quick.
That is a luxury I cannot live without. Traveling.
I I see that. I see that. All right. If they now this is a question straight for you, especially after what you said. If they ever made a movie out of your life, what would be that title of that movie?
Oh gosh.
Right? It's a hard one.
I would
That's tough, isn't it?
say something about it would be something soap opera. Um the end of a journey, or something along those lines. How the journey
Okay.
ends or something. I don't know.
Okay. Well, you know what? As a bonus, who would you want to play you?
Brooke Shields.
Brooke Shields. All right. I love it. What is the best advice you've ever gotten?
Love yourself. Love yourself before you love somebody else. Know your value.
Okay. My last question for you. What's 3 words that best describes you now?
Um, Sweet, kind, and loving.
Caroline, I'll tell you right now, I think you are probably one of the sweetest girls, sweetest females I've ever met in my life. I
Aw,
mean, your heart is unbelievable. Like you have the best heart. Like, oh God, you definitely wear your heart on your sleeve. You know the old saying, I wear my heart on my sleeve.
yeah.
That's you. You got on both sleeves, both legs, everything. You got everything.
It
Now,
didn't
before I
change
go,
who I am as a person. It just changed.
okay,
I'm still who I am. I would still do the same thing. I'm no
okay.
different.
Okay. Well, you will give the final message. If any female or maybe male is hearing this and they're kind of similar, they have a similar journey to you. What advice, after everything you learned in both marriages and everything you learned, what advice would you give that young lady, that female?
I would tell her to make sure whatever you can do to ensure that he loves you. Just try to, even children. I know um those children didn't matter. He would have left them with me forever for whatever it is he's looking for over there. As an American, with our cultures as different as they are, I just think it's very hard to change who they are and to adapt to our culture. So just be very careful. You love who you love and you can't help it, but just be very careful and be very mindful of yourself. Don't lose yourself.
Caroline, thank you so much for coming on this show today. Your story is amazing. I love it. I appreciate you. Thank you for making time for me today. Okay.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I hope that
All right.
I hope my story helps somebody.
Let's go help somebody. And I'm telling you right now, this the story. It is a lifetime story. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for this week's episode on Let's Talk About It. We will see you next week. Peace. Thank you for watching the show. Please like, subscribe, comment. Stay tuned next week for another exciting episode on Let's Talk About It.